Hey everybody, and I am so excited that you are going to be a part of this Introvert Advantage book study. Let me introduce myself. My name is Ben Johnson. I'm privileged to be one of the pastors at Gloria Lutheran Church in Urbandale, Iowa. And I would say that this book was an absolute game changer in my own marriage. It's something that I use in marriage counseling, pre-marriage counseling, and something that I believe in so much that I order a ton of extra copies that I even just keep around in my office that I just give to people. It is one of these, I think, a gap of information in our society, and that is the understanding of the difference between introversion and extroversion. So as we get into this book, I think it's good that before you even launch into it, right, just ask yourself this question: how would you describe the difference between an introvert and an extrovert? That as you process through this, how do you resonate with one or the other? Have you heard about it talked about in a certain way? As we study in on this, these videos, my hope, will be more of a supplemental tool in sort of to kind of walk with you, I guess is the best way to say it, as you read the book, as you get the study guide. And just so you know, online is a study guide that you can download as you read through the book. But these are really more of my role as a pastor in just walking with you through this book and kind of highlighting some spiritual elements and some things that might enrich your understanding of the book, but also to enrich your own relationships and the understanding of how it plays out. Again, I'm no expert on introversion, extroversion. I've read the book and a few others, but I will say that when I see this working out the most is when I am with couples and they're sitting in my office and we're talking through particular topics of interest, and you can see how influenced we are by how we have been made by God. Now, inherent within this is also sort of an approach to marriage that I want to talk about real briefly. Everyone has a different approach that they take to marriage, a different set of expectations that they're going to take into the marriage. The approach that I read about, like in Ephesians 5, from Genesis 2 to other parts of Scripture, and just as I see have also been modeled for me in my life by others, is the approach to marriage that we are constantly in a state of learning one another. That each person on the face of this earth has been created by God in unique and awesome ways, perfectly different from other people. And really a great goal of marriage, I think, was when my wife and I got married and I said, I do, that I was making a covenantal promise to be with her, to be faithful to her, but also I take the approach of, I get to learn you for the rest of my life. I get to figure out kind of what makes you tick. How do you think? How do you process? And because I want to love my wife the best way that I possibly can love my wife. And the only way to do that is to learn, how has God made her in unique and awesome ways. The other part of this is that sometimes the pathway forward is really by going inward. So for us in our time together, a lot of this is not just going to be the analyzing of other people in our life, but the real goal is also to be analyzing ourselves. How has God created you in a unique and awesome way? What gifts, skills, and abilities do you bring to the table of life? And the more that we really identify, man, this is how God created me. These are gifts He's given me, skills He's given me. You also can understand that you don't have to be like everybody else. That the only person we're accountable to is the one who made us. And the real joy of life is finding peace and a sense of centeredness in being who we've been created by God. So the approach to marriage, the approach to our relationships, approach to parenting that I practice in my own life is that each person is different and unique, and we got to be willing to change up how we approach things, how we go about things based upon the personality of the person that we are talking about. So as we get into introvert advantage, I think it's important. I'm just going to go right off into the first little section here. And it says this, that she writes on in chapter 1, first few paragraphs, that the strongest distinguishing characteristic of introverts is their energy source. That introverts draw energy from their internal world of ideas, emotions, and impressions. When you think of introverts, so often people think of the people that are just shy, the people that don't want to be around other people, that more of like people that want to just kind of hole up in their house or their apartment, or they're kind of the ones on the edges. That when they think about extroversion versus introversion, sometimes people fall in the trap of thinking that one is positive and one is negative. I heard someone one time try to describe to me the difference between introversion and extroversion as the two sides of a battery, that there's positive and negative. And they kind of went off, and I was like, man, is that really how you feel? And I asked this person a question. I said, do you really feel that introversion is negative? Is it something that should be hidden or ashamed of? The other side of the conversation that I hear most often when they talk about introversion, extroversion, comes down to social skills. You know, that person talks easily in front of people, they must be an extrovert. Or that person's really outgoing, they must be an extrovert. Or that person is kind of awkward, socially awkward, they must be an introvert. Or that person they don't seem to be sort of in the limelight, they must be an introvert. And so the big takeaway on this one is that, honestly, that stuff really doesn't have a lot to do with introversion, extroversion. But the two main areas that make introverts and extroverts so different and unique is how they gain energy in life and how they process information. Those are really the two big areas that you're going to see throughout the book, is how they gain energy in life, how they recharge the batteries and what it requires in their life to recharge the batteries, but also how they process information. So again, what it says right away there in chapter 1, and if you have your book, you're more than welcome to turn there. But it says introverts draw energy from their internal world of ideas, emotions, and impressions. They're energy conservers. They can easily be overstimulated by the external world, experiencing the uncomfortable feeling of too much. Right? But extroverts are energized by the external world, by activities and people and places and things. They're energy spenders. And so a lot of it comes down to energy. Now, a big part as you launch into this book, again, is sort of the approach that we take to marriage or take to life, is that, again, many times the pathway forward is going internal. And so at the beginning, you're going to see that there's an opportunity for an assessment. I would strongly recommend taking the assessment and just kind of seeing where you fall on the paradigm of introversion, extroversion. I tried to build this study really for all personality types. And so also accompanied with this, if you are more extroverted or if you're introverted and just want to be a part of the group, absolutely. But we're going to have some discussion groups that also you can be a part of throughout the week, and you're in processing through the book, and want to encourage you if you want to be a part of one of those. But as we go into this, you're going to, my prayer is that each and every one of you is just going to learn more about yourself. You're going to learn more about the other people that you are in relationship with. I would say the main onus I'll be talking about is our spouses, spouses are family units. I would say children, spouses, that's kind of a main focus. And I'm also going to be bringing up a lot of things even from my experiences in counseling with others and experiences from my own life. So as we kind of work through this together, that's kind of where I'm coming from as your pastor. One of the stories that stands out to me from my own life was in my first year of marriage, and I had no idea about the difference between introversion and extroversion. I mean, I knew kind of some of the things, but I hadn't really learned a whole lot about it. And that first year of marriage, like many first years of marriage, is filled with a lot of what I like to call dumb fights, where you don't really know what you're even kind of like squabbling about, but you're just not connecting on something. Most of the time I find you're not connecting because we're not really speaking each other's language. And usually it comes down to two different things. If you want another good read, it'd be The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Many times we're not just speaking their language of love. And on the flip side, I would say it's not many people know the difference between introversion and extroversion, right? So I remember we were sitting in our little studio apartment. We were in St. Louis at the time. We were probably, maybe 8 or 9 months into marriage. And all of a sudden, my wife handed me this book and she said, "Read it." And I was like, what? The Introvert Advantage, how quiet people can thrive. And she had gotten it from my sister-in-law, who is also introverted. And my sister-in-law read it, and it just absolutely was just, wow. It was the first book she had read where now her personality made sense and she could read it. So then she gifted it to my wife, who read it and of course was like, wow, this is amazing. And then she gave it to me to read. As I was reading through this book, time and time again, I would stop and I would look over at my wife. I go, "Well, is this really how you are? Is this how you feel?" And she'd be like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Wow." And I'd read some more and I'd read some more and I'd read. It was like reading into the soul of this woman that I loved with all my heart. And the reality was this, I didn't understand her very well. Of course I loved her. Of course I was committed to her. But I didn't really understand how she operated. This book helps in the journey of understanding how the people in our life and the people we love, how they operate, and how we can best love them in this journey of life. So I pray that as you enter into the reading of this book, that you would be blessed and that you would be encouraged, that you'd be challenged and motivated to find new expectational bars of what it means to live out love in our lives. May God bless you in this journey, and we'll see you next time for the next 2 chapters of Introvert Advantage.